The next one is going to be Phillipe Brun. He's the intern. Give him another round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear DRP colleagues, dear DRM colleagues, dear James, dear John, dear Cyril, dear Fimi, I'm very proud being asked to introduce this first conference. We, in the DRM, have gone through 2 months of hard work for this to be possible. I would like to thank Kieran Zego, my colleague, Robert Baddison, my mentor, James Parker, our leader, Genevieve Lee, our treasurer, and the French socialists for helping us with the venue. I can see some of them at the back of the room, and I'm very happy to see them here. I can inform you that a new website has been built at the address movement.democraticreform.co.uk. For those watching us on the internet and for the others, a thread will be open on our website to collect your thoughts and ideas about the economic crisis. If you share our democratic and reformist values, if you like the way we debate and we listen to each other, if you want to have your say and build up this brand new movement with us, you are welcome. Facing an economy in crisis, what a tough subject, but what a thrilling one. France, Britain, and the whole Europe, except Poland, have gone through recessions. And some countries' economies, such as Belgium, are now shrinking once again. Cuts, increases in retirement ages, and of social benefits are organized by both left and right-wing governments. Technocratic governments, led by those who largely participated in the crisis, are appointed without election on behalf of parliamentarians afraid by rating agencies. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch seem now to rule our politics. Standard & Poor's warned France against a potential deterioration of its mark. 9 other European states should also be concerned. This created thunder into the French politics, and the French Conservative Party swore to keep on cutting expenses. The post-war Social Act is now in question and could be reviewed. When he was here in London, Charles de Gaulle surely didn't expect his successors to destroy with such consciousness his work. Just to remember, Standard & Poor's gave to Lehman Brothers its best mark in September 2008, just 1 day before Lehman went bankrupt. These same rating agencies downgraded Tunisia to punish the Arab Spring and revolution. In Italy, the new Mario Monti's government is composed of 15 technocrats. None of them have been ever elected in their lives. Moreover, they certainly helped and contributed to the crisis. Mario Monti, il professore, used to work for Goldman Sachs, and his secretaries used to work in finance for most. We had the Enlightenment. We had 3 centuries of battles for democracy, for sovereignty, for universal suffrage, for social rights. This is now entirely put into the perspective of debt. We, the European countries, have a common fear: decline. We have a common project: progress, equality, technical improvements, environmental respect. And the best of it, the right to choose and to understand politics. This is democracy. This economic crisis is all about democracy. It was caused in no small way by concentrations of power in international financial institutions where the will of the people held no sway. And this is exactly what this conference is all about. Can we change the system? How to change it? And what place for democracy? Now let's talk about debt. A consensus has grown between our elites. The monetary crisis would only be a problem of debt. Our democratic patience, our aspiration to social rights would only be the causes of the current situation. To my mind, they are absolutely different. First, without economic growth, you can't have a well-balanced budget. Debt is made inevitable. The reality of our continent is, on average, 30 years of raising unemployment, massive relocations, and 3 years of financial crisis. In a globalized world, we have not been sufficiently competitive, but not in the sense our short-termist politicians say. A policy for competitiveness does not mean lowering taxes, because we all know here that none of our countries can achieve the tiny level of taxes of China or in emerging countries. Competitiveness in our old and developed countries means better education, massive help for industry. This means also research, small business acts, and internal markets within our zones. After all, although many people think China's growth is built on infrastructure, this was in fact the result of their growth rather than its cause. In Europe, austerity measures only lead to austerity measures and other austerity measures that lead afterwards to depression. You, the British people, nation of Keynes, should understand this quite well, on the contrary to your Prime Minister David Cameron. Some liberal fanatics made us think that our globalization was a remake of the Adam Smith International Division of Labour. According to them, European countries should only concentrate on services, finance, and let the small countries do the production. This is, as far as I'm concerned, a big mistake. We live in a globalized world with the universal aspiration to democracy and progress, as the Arab Spring proves. A few more decades like this, and China won't only be the factory of the world, it will also be the thinking head of the world. That is the reason why we have to focus much more on industry, and I'm personally calling for a European plan of industrial investment financed by European savers in order to help reindustrialize our lands. Our deindustrialization can also be stopped by a reasoned European tariff policy on social and environmental issues. Some sluice gates need to come at the barriers of Europe, not only to protect ourselves, but especially promote social progress to the emerging countries and impose environmental respect. Moreover, money is a very important thing. When you've got the industry, it doesn't necessarily give exportations when your money is not competitive. It doesn't concern Britain, but in the Eurozone, we waste contracts because of a too high level of money, which is only profitable to Germany, which realizes 80% of its exports in the Eurozone. It makes sense to slightly devalue the euro to make it more competitive to the dollar and yuan. Second, the market control of politics has been a deliberate choice. There is no fatality. It's a choice made by our politicians. Consequently, it is possible to slightly cut out of it. In the mid-1970s, central banks stopped lending money to the state because in the case of big state expenses, this created inflation. To reduce the amount of private money in a state's debt, we could maybe find equilibrium between central bank on one side and private money on the other side. The last Eurozone agreement in November, instead of implementing Eurobonds, which is a combination of Eurozone debts, considers calling China and Brazil to participate in what they call a special vehicle to our European Stability Fund. It is a dramatic choice, and it puts our destiny under significant pressure. State intervention is not a swear word. It is the condition for our sovereignty, freedom, and independence. Third, debt is also a matter of demography and population. Spain's and France and Italy's national debts are also due to a top-heavy demography and the national invest in education. How can we blame this? Debt is not necessarily a bad thing. There is good debt dedicated to research, education, innovation that we mustn't stop. In fact, it was Gordon Brown, one of the UK's most successful chancellors, who coined the golden rule in which he said debt was acceptable if it's investment rather than current spending. This is very different to what we call a golden rule in France, which is a constitutional rule to avoid deficits. Our politicians, after years of non-serious budgets, now want rigid rules to forbid deficits. This doesn't take into account exceptional situations like in 2008 when the banks couldn't have been saved with such a rule. That is the reason why we need to adopt a clever approach on deficits and distrust rigid rules which would not be economically responsible. This question, investment, common debt, European industrial policy face geopolitical realities. As you know, British people are not keen on the EU. Just watch the Cameron-Miliband debate, and it's a petty game of who is the most Eurosceptic. Your criticisms are right. Most of the French people share them. Most of the European people share them. The European debate has brought the left elites to accept bad liberalism. The European institutions are, for most, undemocratic. Left and right parties in the European Parliament vote the same in 95% of the time, according to a 2009 study. The European Commission has a complete power of initiative, whereas the European Parliament can only amend projects. We need to change this. We need to find a popular constitution agreed by all European populations. This is necessary if we want to overtake the crisis. If Europe were once united in the sharing of its common inheritance, there would be no limit to the happiness, the prosperity and glory which these 300 or 400 million people would enjoy. Guess who it was? Winston Churchill in his Zurich speech in 1946. The British people need to get back into the European debate if they want an alternative to cuts and to austerity, to useless politicians with no power. Remember, we all have a common fear, decline. We all have a common hope, progress, equality, technical improvements, environmental respect, and the best of it, the right to understand politics and to choose our leaders. This is democracy. At every stage of the society, we need democracy. Long live democracy. Before ending this speech, I want to introduce our brilliant speakers tonight. Thank you for coming. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, John Bonzo, founder of the Simultaneous Policy Organization, James Parker, leader of the Democratic Reform Party, Cyril Zeldin and his comrades from Occupy London, and Fini Solola, independent candidate for the London 2012 election. We have great hopes for Britain, we have great hopes for Europe, we have great hopes for the democratic reform movement. Thank you.